The human ship arrived late, lost, and already irritated. The wayward sun tore out of hyperspace trailing ionized gas, its jump core screaming like a wounded animal before going silent. Emergency lights flickered across a bridge that looked more like a scrapyard than a Starship command center. Patched bulkheads, analog gauges bolted next to holographic displays, duct tape holding a cracked console together out of sheer stubbornness. Captain Mark Rourke didn't look impressed. "Navigation," he growled, rubbing his eyes. "Tell me why we just jumped into somebody's nightmare." Lieutenant Hayes stared at the screen, fingers frozen over the console. "Sir, this system isn't on any chart. No beacons. No civilian traffic codes." The main view screen finished resolving. Silence fell over the bridge. They hadn't emerged near a star or a barren rock. They had dropped directly into the heart of a city, an impossible one. A colossal lattice of metal and light wrapped around a blue-white sun, layers of platforms stacked like armor plates. Thousands of ships moved in disciplined lanes, every hull sharp-edged and predatory. Weapons ports were visible even at distance. This wasn't a station. This was a capital. Rourke leaned back slowly. "Of course it is." Before anyone could respond, alarms howled, external targeting locks painting the wayward sun in hostile crimson. A dozen warships shifted formation, sliding into attack posture with the casual confidence of predators who had never known resistance. A hail request slammed into the comm system. No translation buffer. No courtesy delay. Just dominance. The screen filled with an alien figure tall and broad, encased in chitinous armor grown into ceremonial ridges. Its mandibles clicked as it spoke, voice layered with artificial authority and something colder beneath. "I am High Prefect Zalrun of the Krathen Dominion. You have violated sovereign imperial space. Power down all systems. Prepare for seizure and biological assessment." Hayes swallowed. "Biological assessment?" Rourke leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "High Prefect, this is a civilian vessel. We had a navigation failure. We need fuel and directions." "That's it." The alien's eyes narrowed, glowing faintly. "Your species is not registered. Your vessel is unlicensed. Your presence is a crime." Rourke sighed like a man arguing with traffic police after a double shift. "Yeah, we get that a lot." Behind Zalrun, Krathen officers moved rapidly, data streams flickering. Scanners pored over the human ship, and immediately returned contradictory results. Primitive hull composition. Non-standard drive systems. Weapons, illegal weapons. The prefect stiffened. "You carry mass driver cannons." "Cargo tools," Rourke corrected mildly. "Those weapons are forbidden under Dominion law." Rourke raised an eyebrow. "You guys have laws?" The bridge crew tensed. Hayes shot him a look. "Sir?" Zalrun's mandibles flared in rage. "The Krathen Dominion has eradicated species older than your sun. You will submit." Rourke's expression didn't change. "That's funny," he said. "Because we were just trying not to run out of gas." The targeting alarms intensified. 300 Dominion warships locked onto a single battered human freighter that looked like it had lost the fight with a scrapyard and come back for more. Protocol demanded surrender. Human history suggested otherwise. Rourke tapped a switch on his armrest. "Engineering," a gruff voice answered. "Yeah, Cap? Wake the cargo." A pause. Then, "You sure?" Rourke smiled thinly. "Very." The wayward sun's rear bays irised open. The Dominion fleet didn't react at first. They expected escape pods. Debris. Maybe surrender beacons. Instead, 20 industrial mining drones drifted free, ugly, angular machines bristling with reinforced rams and cutting arrays. Nuclear-powered. Autonomous. Designed to shatter asteroids that didn't want to be shattered. Then their engines flared. "Enemy drones accelerating!" a Krathen officer shouted. "Intercept!" Zalrun roared. Too late. The first drone slammed into a destroyer at relativistic speed. Shields designed for plasma warfare failed instantly. The ship split in half, its reactor rupturing in a silent white bloom. The second drone punched straight through a cruiser's bridge, venting atmosphere and command crew alike. The third didn't slow down at all. Panic rippled through the Dominion formation. "What are those things?" Zauren hissed. Rourke watched calmly as chaos erupted across the city. "Mining equipment," he said into the open channel. "You should see what we use for fighting." The Dominion finally fired. Energy lances tore through space, vaporizing 2 drones, but the rest kept coming, ignoring damage, rerouting power, adapting. One embedded itself in a carrier and began drilling. Another detonated its reactor inside a shielded hangar. Within minutes, Dock Ring 7 was gone. Alarms screamed across the capital. Civilian traffic scattered. Military discipline cracked. On the Wayward Sun, Hayes stared at the casualty projections scrolling across his screen. "Sir, we just crippled the Dominion defense ring." Rourke nodded. "Accidentally?" "They didn't run. They docked." What remained of Dock Ring 7 was a torn open wound in the city's hull, atmosphere venting in shimmering waves. Human thrusters burned hard as the freighter forced itself into the breach. The boarding ramp slammed down. Human Marines poured out. They weren't young. They weren't pretty. Their armor was scarred, patched, personalized. Old unit insignias scratched over newer ones. Men who had survived wars no one remembered anymore. A Krothan honor guard formed up, ceremonial blades raised, energy shields flaring. Their leader stepped forward. "Kneel before the Dominion." The human sergeant shot him once through the chest. The body hit the deck. Silence followed. Then the remaining honor guard broke and ran. Rourke stepped onto alien metal, cigarette already lit despite regulations and common sense. He looked around at the burning city, the fleeing ships, the collapsing illusion of Imperial control. "Fuel," he said calmly. "Parts. Data. Take what we need." Hayes hesitated. "Sir, this is first contact." Rourke exhaled smoke. "No, son. This is just the first time they noticed." Deep in the Dominion's central databanks, automated systems struggled to classify the event. Unknown species. Unregistered doctrine. Unacceptable losses. A new entry appeared, blinking red. Species, human. Threat assessment, incomplete. Recommendation, extreme caution. But it was already too late. Humanity had stumbled into an empire. And for the first time in centuries, the empire was afraid. The Krothan Dominion did not panic. They rationalized. Empires always do. A council of elders, admirals, and synthetic advisors convened in a gleaming hollow chamber. Hundreds of datapads projected timelines, casualty reports, and scans of the human vessel. They argued, shouted, hissed, and gestured wildly in a dozen different ways their species considered. "Formal discussion. An anomaly," one scientist hissed. "An isolated threat. Primitive vessel. Rogue faction," shouted an admiral, claws rapping against a desk. "Or sabotage. Or a contagion." "Luck," muttered the youngest, voice trembling. "They cannot really be this effective." Meanwhile, Captain Mark Rourke lounged on the Wayward Sun's bridge, cigarette smoke curling into the flickering lights of a console. He swiped a hand across the view of the city, watching alarms scream across the capital as human drones tore through the Dominion fleet with surgical brutality. "Sir," Lieutenant Hayes muttered, staring at the screen. "They've mobilized an entire battle group. Heavy cruisers, siege platforms, orbital artillery. They're coming for us." Rourke exhaled slowly, watching a drone slam through a cruiser like a hammer through glass. "Good," he said. "Let them." The Dominion fleet surged into system, weapons blazing, attempting to corral the humans into destruction zones. Energy lances and plasma storms lanced across space, vaporizing sections of empty cargo ships, igniting wreckage clouds, and cutting short any sense of order. And then the humans began to fight back. It was not like any empire had ever seen. Boarding craft were launched with reckless precision. Small freighters were retrofitted with mass driver cannons illegally sourced from decades of human engineering. Shotguns were brought to zero-G corridors. Tactical maneuvers ignored orbital patterns entirely, ramming, looping, unpredictable arcs. One Dominion cruiser tried to line up a kill shot. A human pilot whispered into comms, voice calm, almost bored. "Tell my ex this one wasn't my fault." Then the cruiser exploded. The Wayward Sun itself had not moved. Rourke didn't leave the dock. He had no reason to. Humanity had learned that fleets are convenient, but courage, calculated, brutal, unorthodox courage, was far deadlier. Mining drones, now weaponized, streamed into the city like swarms of angry locusts, each drone following its own set of objectives, unscripted yet coordinated by the human crew's improvisational genius. Where Dominion ships expected obedience, they found chaos. Drones avoided shield zones, exploited weak points, and used collisions like weapons. The Dominion's elegant battle formations shattered like glass under hammer strikes. Zalrun barked orders in alien clicks and roars, but his crew could not comprehend the human mind, improvisation, fearlessness, and a willingness to embrace destruction as both shield and sword. "They are insane," one officer hissed, eyes wide with terror. "They have no regard for survival protocols. No regard for energy conservation. No regard for anything. They fight like animals," said another. "No. Worse. They fight like ghosts. Like we don't exist." Rourke's voice came over open comms, calm, clipped. "High Prefect. You should see what we do when we actually plan for war." A Dominion dreadnought tried to intercept. A single drone slammed into its reactor bay. Thermal readings went haywire. Structural integrity failed. The dreadnought fractured and exploded, sending hundreds of smaller craft tumbling into each other like dominoes. By the end of the first hour, the Dominion had lost nearly half of its outer defense ring. The humans had not even powered up their primary engines. Hayes wiped sweat from his brow. "Sir? I don't think they understand what's happening." Rourke flicked ashes from his cigarette into the void of space visible through the viewport. "They do. They just don't know how to handle it." As the capital city trembled, Rourke issued a single, chilling order. "Prepare the next wave. Civilian cargo. Weaponized. Let's see how they like dinner service." The Dominion fleet had always relied on fear and reputation. They had never fought a species that treated destruction like routine, that laughed at peril, that leveraged chaos as strategy. Somewhere deep in the Krothan databanks, emergency protocols began flagging a single word. Human. Threat level, exceeds scale. And still, the humans pressed on, unmoved, methodical, terrifying. Rourke stood at the bridge, cigarette smoldering between fingers. "This," he said quietly, almost to himself, "is what happens when you forget history." Because these humans had one thing no empire could anticipate, a memory older than the Dominion's rise, and a hatred sharper than any mass driver cannon. And they were just getting started. The twist did not come from the battlefield. It came from history. Deep within the Dominion's central archives, a trembling analyst unearthed a record that made even seasoned commanders freeze. One tiny, almost forgotten notation, Terra Prime. The human homeworld. Marked. Exterminated, Cycle 4093. Wiped clean. Civilization erased. Only a handful of colonists had survived in hidden ships, escaping into the void. All memory of humanity was supposed to be gone. And now, here they were. Captain Mark Rourke stared at the reconstructed hologram of the old Terra Prime archives. Worlds once vibrant with human life, now reduced to ash and memory. But humanity hadn't died. Not completely. Not quietly. Not ever. "Sir?" Lieutenant Hayes whispered, voice barely audible. They thought we were gone." Rourke's lips curved into a slow, bitter grin. "They didn't underestimate us," he said. "They failed to finish the job." The Dominion attempted diplomacy after the first wave of destruction. A holographic delegation materialized, radiating authority and fear in equal measure. "Terrans," Zalrun hissed, mandibles trembling. We can negotiate. Tribute, autonomy, resources. Rourke recorded the message, every word deliberate. His crew watched silently as he leaned into the calm. You killed our homeworld, he said evenly, voice low and steady. You enslaved countless species. You built your empire on corpses. A pause. The alien delegation flickered, unprepared for this kind of honesty. We learned mercy the hard way, Rourke continued. You taught us what cruelty looks like. Then he smiled. And that smile was worse than any fleet. Humanity did not seek to conquer the Dominion. They sought something far more terrifying, freedom for every enslaved species, and the complete dismantling of the Dominion's grip over the galaxy. They liberated every slave colony, fed weapons and knowledge to every rebellion. Human advisors stayed behind, not as rulers, but as enablers, teachers of resistance, strategists of chaos. Boarding parties didn't kill indiscriminately. They used fear as a scalpel, precision strikes that targeted command, infrastructure, and propaganda networks. Systems that had taken centuries to perfect crumbled within weeks. The capital fell without a climactic battle. Dominion nobles, officers, and bureaucrats scattered into the void. Planets that had been oppressed for generations erupted in revolt simultaneously. Rourke watched the last Dominion dreadnought drift into the void, abandoned, and felt no triumph. Victory was cold. Practical. Necessary. You know, Hayes muttered later, staring at the aftermath. I thought we'd be celebrated. At least somewhere in the galaxy. Rourke shook his head, lighting another cigarette. They'll whisper. That's enough. Because the human legacy was never about glory. It was about survival, and making sure the galaxy remembered that forgetting humans came at a terrible price. Every fleet, every colony, every star empire that had underestimated humanity now carried a warning. And the humans, they were far from done. In their calm, their chaos, and their cold efficiency, the Dominion realized a terrifying truth: humanity didn't just fight back. Humanity rewrote the rules. And no algorithm, no doctrine, no empire could predict what they would do next. For the Krothan, for every would-be oppressor, the word human became a prophecy. A warning whispered across the stars. Do not stumble into our space. Do not think you are safe. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We are still here. And somewhere in the dark reaches beyond the Dominion, human ships drifted, patient and silent, preparing for the next act. Because revenge may have begun with history, but for humanity, it would never end. Years later, the remnants of the Krothan Dominion floated like broken statues across the void. Capitals abandoned. Fleets scattered. Worlds once chained now pulsed with freedom, and every liberated species whispered the same name: humanity. On the edge of former Dominion space, a small bar hung suspended between two asteroid fragments. Its lights were dim, the music gratingly cheerful, and the clientele eclectic. Ex-slaves, smugglers, diplomats, and mercenaries nursed drinks while stories of past battles wove through the smoke. Captain Mark Rourke leaned against the counter, older now, hair streaked with gray, face lined with the weight of battles he had survived and others he had seen. He stared at a drink he hadn't ordered, swirling it idly. You came by accident, said a tall alien, wings folded against its back, formerly enslaved, now a trader in free space. Its voice held both reverence and disbelief. You stayed on purpose. Rourke smirked, tapping ashes into a chipped tray. Story of our species, he said. We wander. We screw up. And if anyone thinks they can boss us around, we make sure they regret it. The alien shook its head. You didn't just defeat them. You reshaped the galaxy. Every empire that grows too arrogant now whispers your name in fear. Rourke shrugged. Good. Let them whisper. Outside the bar, human freighters and merchant ships drifted lazily through the asteroid field, crews laughing, arguing, occasionally blasting a rogue drone that had wandered too close. Humanity hadn't taken dominion. They hadn't become tyrants or overlords. They had simply made sure no one else could. A child, half human, half Krothan, born in liberated space, ran past, laughing, chasing a floating drone. Rourke watched for a moment, remembering the children of Earth who would never see their homeworld, and those who would now inherit the galaxy differently. History repeats itself, Hayes said quietly, leaning beside him. Except we don't let it. Not anymore. Rourke agreed, eyes tracing the dance of stars beyond the bar's viewport. Not anymore. Humanity did not conquer. Humanity did not submit. Humanity wandered, fought, survived, and reshaped the cosmos in ways no empire had predicted. And somewhere, deep in the dark reaches of space, when a tyrant's fleet grows too large, when a species grows too arrogant, when a world thinks it can enslave others without consequence, someone will whisper across the void, "Careful! Humans might wander in." And that whisper, quiet as it is, terrifies more than fleets, more than weapons, more than fear itself. Because humans are patient. Humans are clever. Humans are dangerous. And humans never forget. Rourke finished his drink, stubbed out his cigarette, and smiled faintly. The galaxy had learned the hard way: if you stumble into human space, even by accident, you should be very afraid. And somewhere, far off, someone always is. The legend of the Wayward Sun and its crew endured. Not as conquerors, not as gods, but as ghosts of vengeance, clever and relentless. Humanity had wandered into the Dominion by accident, and left the galaxy forever changed. HFY indeed.